The atmosphere in the casino was thick with excitement and luxury. While coins clinked all around, an invitation arrived that was impossible to refuse. The Count himself was waiting in the VIP lounge for a special game. Her companions exchanged short phrases, trying to maintain composure. She promised not to risk all their money. They still needed something for dinner. Thoughts of her friends never left her mind. She so desperately wanted to treat them to a truly royal feast, and for that goal, she was ready for a little adventure. Glancing at her reserves, she made up her mind. Confidence in her eyes and a handful of chips in her hand signaled that the game was about to begin. The sight of so much gold caused genuine shock and delight. It was hard to believe that an ordinary dinner could cost a fortune. But today, generosity set the rules. She only sincerely wondered why her gesture had caused such a sensation. For her, the comfort of her loved ones came first, no matter the price. Her friends froze in stunned silence, realizing the scale of what was happening. The amount intended for a single meal seemed to them beyond comprehension and even frightening. But the time for talk was over. The casino attendant politely gestured for them to follow, leading toward the doors behind which fates were decided. She adjusted her hat and paused for a moment, gathering her thoughts. In that gaze was readiness to face any opponent head-on. The corridors of the mansion seemed endless, and the heavy columns only emphasized the importance of the upcoming meeting. Every step brought them closer to the Count's study. The escort acted impeccably, observing every rule of etiquette. He opened the doors before the guest, inviting her into the holy of holies of the gaming establishment. The host was already waiting. Surrounded by exquisite furniture and dim lighting, he looked like a man accustomed to complete control of any situation. The Count studied his guest intently. He admitted that he had long observed her successes and noted her extraordinary luck, which set her apart so sharply from other players. His voice was soft and insinuating. The host hinted that luck was a capricious lady, and now was the time to show true composure. The cards were laid on the table. The main game of the evening began, poker, where the stakes were far higher than mere gold coins. The host behaved like a true gentleman, offering any conditions she desired. It seemed he genuinely enjoyed the company of his new guest and was willing to make concessions on the rules. She only nodded calmly, fully entrusting the choice to him. She compensated for her lack of gambling experience with icy composure that threw others off balance. The first bet was placed. The pot was not large, but the silence in the room became almost tangible. The game had begun. The opponents exchanged short phrases, probing the ground. No one was in a hurry to risk, as though this were not just a game, but a complex diplomatic dance. One brief gesture, and the next card lay on the felt. Tension grew with every move. It was time to face fate. She slowly lifted the edge of her card, trying not to betray any emotion with even the slightest twitch. It was time for the reveal. The entire room held its breath, awaiting the outcome of this round, where a novice faced a seasoned master. The Count confidently showed his cards, declaring a strong hand. His smile widened. He was certain victory was already in his pocket. She thoughtfully examined her own symbols, trying to understand if they were enough to win. In the silence, her hesitation seemed eternal. The effect was like a bomb exploding. On the table lay a full house, surpassing any expectation. Her friends could not believe their eyes. Incredible luck had once again sided with her. Even the casino owner could not hide his astonishment. He admitted that he had not seen such phenomenal luck in a very long time. She herself did not fully comprehend what had just happened. The question of exactly how this combination had come together remained a mystery to her, but the result was undeniable. Yet behind the host's graciousness lay cold calculation. He gently remarked that perhaps he should not be too lenient simply because a young lady stood before him. the atmosphere shifted instantly. With one sharp movement, he announced his victory in the next round, making it clear that the real game was only just beginning. Now he no longer hid his superiority. His gaze said it plainly. He set the rules here, and the novice's look had run out. Her companions began to sense the danger. The experienced player had simply lured them into a trap, first letting them taste the sweetness of easy victory. Anxiety mounted. It was clear the Count intended to take everything down to the last coin, exploiting the naivety of his guest. Yet she herself was in complete ecstasy. The thrill had consumed her entirely, and she didn't even notice how the noose around her luck was tightening. An attentive eye caught a strange detail. While the Count spoke of luck, she never took her eyes off his hands, suspecting that fair play had ended several rounds ago. Her premonition proved correct. A deft movement, an almost imperceptible gesture, and an extra card vanished into the cuff of his expensive coat. The owner of the establishment turned out to be an ordinary cheat. Rage instantly replaced thrill. She had no intention of allowing herself to be deceived, no matter the status of her opponent. The Count's audacity demanded an immediate response. Her reaction was lightning fast. Before he could recover, she seized his wrist in an iron grip, literally forcing the truth out into the open before everyone present. The loud exposure made everyone hold their breath. She publicly accused the Count of cheating, unafraid of the consequences of her outburst. The situation in the VIP lounge spiraled completely out of control. The intervention of a stranger in a crimson coat was sudden and decisive. He pinned the fraud to the table, demanding the guards remove the charlatan at once. The young man made no effort to hide his contempt. His voice thundered through the hall, denouncing the baseness of a man who called himself a noble lord, yet stooped to stealing from a lady. She froze, stunned by this unexpected defense. The appearance of this man threw all her thoughts into confusion, making her momentarily forget the recent scandal. The danger passed as quickly as it had arisen. Now before her stood the one who, in a single instant, had turned chaos into a triumph of justice. In the next moment, the atmosphere shifted to something almost fairy tale-like. The noble savior bowed gracefully and pressed a respectful kiss to her hand. The entire world around them seemed to fill with the scent of spring flowers. His gaze was full of tenderness and admiration. Words of greeting sounded so gentle that the anger and tension finally melted away, leaving only a strange flutter in her chest. Blood rushed to her face, and she felt her heart pound wildly. Such gallantry was too unexpected, catching her completely off guard. Lines from her favorite novel flashed through her memory. This scene was exactly like the fateful meeting of the main characters on the pages of the book she knew by heart. The resemblance was staggering. Before her stood a man who seemed to have stepped straight out of the pages of literature, embodying the very legendary Count from her dreams. Sincere words of gratitude from her little companion softened her heart. Despite the recent tension, in this moment she felt only warmth and joy at having been able to help. The evening was drawing to a close, and it was time to say goodbye. Her companions insisted on leaving soon, understanding that there had been more than enough adventure for one day. Yet their new acquaintance was in no hurry to let the group go. With the most charming smile he was capable of, he called their meeting fate. The invitation to tea sounded so gallant that refusing was almost impossible. She accepted the invitation, though she warned that she could not stay long. The young man replied that it would be his honor to spend even a few minutes with such a beautiful lady. Promising her friends she would return soon, she followed her savior. A light excitement still lingered, but curiosity won out. Left behind, her companions could only silently watch the departing pair. The casino atmosphere gave way to silence, in which each was left alone with their thoughts. Meanwhile, within the escort group, a serious conversation was brewing. The responsibility for bringing her to such a dubious place now weighed heavily on the shoulders of the instigator of this adventure. Punishment followed immediately. Her friends did not hold back their emotions, clearly explaining to the culprit just how irresponsible his plan had been. Her younger brother was beside himself with fury. He swore that he would never again allow his sister to be in the company of such suspicious individuals, no matter the cost. While her friends argued, she existed in an entirely different world. The image of her noble savior completely captivated her imagination, leaving behind the aftertaste of a magical fairy tale that had just become reality. Finding themselves alone in a quiet corner of the establishment, the pair could finally talk without prying eyes. The atmosphere around them felt fairy tale-like, filled with soft light and the sparks of first sympathy. Her gallant companion politely asked the girl to remove her headwear, wishing to see his companion more clearly. His disarming smile left no room for doubt about the sincerity of his intentions. Blushing, she obeyed, trying to hide her nervousness behind the compliant gesture. Every glance betrayed her inexperience in such matters. Compliments poured like a river. Hearing about her exceptional beauty, the girl completely lost the power of speech, feeling heat flood her face from such open admiration. Finally, he introduced himself. Aiden Castro seemed completely unperturbed by the situation. He carried himself with confidence and poise. Learning her savior's name, the girl gave hers in return. At that moment, Kira had no idea what game her new acquaintance was playing. The man only gently sealed the acquaintance, tasting the name Miss Kira on his tongue. In his insinuating voice rang the triumph of a hunter whose plan was beginning to bear fruit. Memories flashed back to the recent past when this meeting was still being prepared. In the noisy halls of the gambling house, every guest's move was watched closely. Kira looked out of place here. Her genuine interest in the surrounding splendor betrayed a person accustomed to a completely different way of life. The local elite immediately noticed the new arrival. To them, she was merely a naive country girl from a strict family, whose appearance in such a place was a fatal mistake. But it was precisely that purity that attracted Aiden most of all. He saw in her inexperience an exciting challenge, considering such girls the most interesting and easiest prey. He decided to proceed cautiously. Direct flirting might scare off the timid lady, so he chose the tactic of accidental closeness. Every movement was calculated to the millimeter. Surrounding her with apparent care and attention, he gradually tightened the circle, giving her no time to recover. Inside, he triumphed. The role of noble gentleman came easily to him, and the girl's reactions confirmed that she had fallen completely under his influence. Returning to reality, he masterfully played the card of embarrassment. Citing that her beauty made him nervous, Aiden finally lulled his prey's vigilance. The girl was completely thrown off balance. Such directness caught her off guard, making her heart beat several times faster. Seeing how easily she succumbed to his charm, the man decided to consolidate his success. He invited her to a joint dinner on the upcoming weekend, confident that the fish had already swallowed the hook. The answer came without hesitation. Without thinking of consequences, she blurted out her agreement, exhilarated by the attention of such a gallant gentleman. While they enjoyed each other's company, someone watched them closely. Her companions never took their eyes off this suspicious idol. Her friends finally remembered who they were dealing with. This man's reputation in high society was far from spotless, and his true face finally surfaced in their memory. It turned out this gentleman was the notoriously infamous son of a viscount. His bad fame as a hunter of women's hearts rang throughout the district. Aiden's audacity knew no bounds. Allowing himself liberties with an innocent lady, he only confirmed the worst fears of those who knew his true nature. Her younger brother's patience snapped. If not for his companion's restraining hands, he would have rushed to defend his sister's honor from this scoundrel right then and there. Radiant with happiness, the girl returned to her company. She seemed to float above the ground, still under the impression of the recent conversation.
Her brother immediately began scolding her for carelessness, pointing out the stranger's improper behavior, but Kira only waved him off, considering his bold touch simple care. Her companions tried to appeal to her reason, asking if she had given her real name. The girl remained adamant in her desire to keep her family's identity secret, even in such a moment. Her next statement left them all speechless. Kira called the cunning seducer merely a new acquaintance, finally robbing her friends of speech.
In her eyes, Aiden remained the ideal of nobility. She was already dreaming of the upcoming meeting, imagining how wonderfully their joint weekend would go. While she built castles in the air, storm clouds gathered over her head. Her friends foresaw inevitable disaster, understanding that no good would come of this infatuation. Even strict upbringing and the warnings of mentors could not drown out her thirst for romantic adventures she had read so much about. She sincerely believed she had met her destiny. Images from romance novels had finally come to life, promising her the very ideal love she had always dreamed of, unaware of the hidden threat. Kira was full of determination. The meeting at the casino had become the beginning of a new chapter for her, and she had no intention of missing her chance of adventure, even if it required cunning. Under the cover of night, the family estate sank into silence. But in one of the rooms, life continued to boil. The lady of the house could not close her eyes. Immersed in warm water, she indulged in sweet dreams. The feeling of boundless happiness overflowed her, and recent events seemed the beginning of a magical dream. Her faithful maid immediately noticed the change in her lady's mood. Questions followed without delay. Such sparks in her mistress's eyes could mean only one thing: an interesting acquaintance. Kira did not hide the truth. With delight, she described her new acquaintance, whose appearance and manners had made an indelible impression on her. Yet the girl's enthusiasm only caused anxiety in the servant. Experience told the woman that behind a beautiful wrapper, dangerous intentions were often hidden. Kira was certain of her safety. She naively believed that by concealing her true name and origin, she could control the situation and remain unrecognized. Her plan was to pretend to be the daughter of an impoverished noble from a distant province. The girl sincerely believed such a disguise would make their communication simple and sincere. The plan seemed flawless to her, but from the outside it looked ridiculous. Attempts by an aristocrat to the core to imitate poverty only caused bewilderment in those who had known her all her life. The very surroundings screamed of wealth. Kira's nobility was so natural and deep that no legend of provincial poverty could conceal it. Preparations for the upcoming date were in full swing. Every detail of her appearance had to match the chosen role, though the girl's thoughts flew far ahead. She seriously considered how to entertain her companion after dinner. Her ideas were grand and completely mismatched with the status of a poor noblewoman. A simple restaurant visit felt insufficient. The thought came to Kira to rent an entire theater for the evening so they could enjoy art together. The maid could only sigh bitterly. She had to remind her lady that poor provincials were unlikely to have the money to rent an entire building, and her legend was already cracking before it even began. Thinking about the upcoming date, the girl tried to understand how ordinary people spent their time. Her ideas about life outside the mansion walls were extremely vague. The maid told her of simple pleasures, carriage rides or hot air balloon trips through the capital. For ordinary townspeople, these were usual ways to travel and relax. Despite warnings about discomfort, Kira was ready for anything for a new experience. She believed she could pass for one of them. After all, she had once even tried cheap alcohol. Thoughts of a date among the clouds captured her imagination. It seemed the height of romance. Only her gentleman, and the boundless blue sky. However, the prospect of spending time in a crowd did not appeal to her. Kira wanted solitude, so no one would interfere with their first real conversation. The decision came naturally.
The habit of thinking on an aristocratic scale once again overrode her attempts to appear a modest simpleton. She decided to simply rent the entire vessel for the whole day. In her world, this was the most logical way to ensure comfort and quiet. Overflowing with emotion, the girl could not sit still. Anticipation of the perfect date made her glow with happiness, casting aside any doubts. Watching this sincere joy, the maid could not help but worry. She saw how fragile the illusory world Kira had built around her new acquaintance truly was. But for the heroine herself, the evening ended on the highest note. With a smile on her lips, she drifted into sleep, where her perfect gentleman and perfect date awaited. Only a little time remained until then. The new day began with dazzling sunshine, as if nature itself favored the coming changes. Those around her could not believe their eyes. The usual order of the house had been disrupted by something completely inexplicable. Transformed and radiant, she walked confidently through the blooming garden. Every movement carried a lightness she had previously lacked so much. Lost in her thoughts, she savored the moment. Her heart beat faster, and only one question circled in her mind. Could this really be that love? The idyll was interrupted by the unexpected appearance of the one who least expected to see the lady in such a state. Sir Joseph froze, unable to hide his confusion. Before him stood the woman he had known for many years, yet now she seemed a completely different person. Kira turned, giving the knight a smile capable of eclipsing the sunlight. There was no longer any trace of her usual coldness or anxiety in her eyes. The short conversation in the quiet of the alleys only emphasized the striking change. She had no intention of going anywhere. She was simply enjoying her new state. The calm that had settled in her soul reflected in every glance. The world around her suddenly gained colors she had never noticed before. With one light movement, she plucked a flower, wanting to share a piece of her happiness. The gesture was so natural and at the same time bold that the knight completely lost the power of speech. She herself closed the distance, destroying all barriers. Leaving him in utter confusion, the girl disappeared into the depths of the garden. Her laughter echoed in the ears of the bewildered companion for a long time. He remained alone, trying to comprehend what had happened. The silence of the garden now felt deafening to him. Looking at the gifted flower, he felt a strange warmth spreading through his chest. The unexpected gift awakened feelings in him he was not prepared for. His departure did not go unnoticed. Every step the knight took only fueled the curiosity of those watching the scene from the shadows. Witnesses were both horrified and delighted. What they had seen did not fit their image of the strict lady. Rumors began spreading like wildfire. What could have so changed the cold heart of the lady and turned her into an entirely different person? The boldest guesses all came down to one thing. The lady had a secret lover, and that thought frightened and excited the imagination of the estate's inhabitants more than anything else. Joseph could not bear it. With a sharp shout, he tried to cut off any gossip, not allowing the servants to tarnish his lady's honest name with empty chatter. Frightened by the knight's righteous anger, the gossips hurried to apologize. Yet in their memory, the strange gleam in Kira's eyes remained too vivid. Their imaginations painted pictures of upcoming romantic meetings. They were certain the lady's weekend would be spent in the company of a mysterious gentleman who had completely captured her thoughts. Despite his outward sternness, a seed of doubt had been planted even in Joseph's soul. He could not help but wonder, who was this man capable of so strongly influencing the lady, and was he merely an ordinary adventurer? Thoughts of their lady's reputation gave them no rest. In their world, an imprudent connection could forever close the doors to high society. The atmosphere in the estate heated up. Loyal subjects felt they must protect Kira from a possible mistake before it was too late. Mutual suspicion gave way to a common resolve to act. They swore to prevent disaster at any cost. A clear plan was developed. They needed to discover the time and place of the date so they could secretly follow their lady and personally verify the stranger's intentions. Time passed, bringing the moment of truth closer. Every moment of waiting felt like eternity for all participants in this story. The long-awaited day arrived. The city, bathed in sunlight and adorned for celebration, became the setting for a meeting that would decide everything.
Kira appeared on the square in a simple yet elegant outfit. Her heart pounded wildly, betraying the excitement she tried in vain to hide behind outward calm. She had been forced to sacrifice her usual luxury to preserve the secret. Despite the desire to look dazzling, she chose modesty, fearing to destroy the image that had so charmed her companion. A sudden exclamation made her flinch. Through the crowd hurried the very person for whom she had dared this small transformation. Spotting her from afar, Aiden broke into a sincere smile. His welcoming gesture instantly dispelled the last drops of her uncertainty. Joy at the meeting overwhelmed her. The whole world around ceased to exist, leaving only this moment and the man who made her heart flutter. In a surge of emotion, she did not notice how her inner power slipped out of control. The magic dormant within responded to the emotional surge, enveloping the girl in a barely perceptible glow. The distance between them shrank in a fraction of a second. Reality itself seemed to bend, obeying her unconscious desire to be near him as quickly as possible. Finding herself face to face with her companion, she hurried to hide her embarrassment behind light conversation. Her voice sounded soft, her manners full of natural charm. Aiden froze in slight bewilderment. It seemed to him that a moment ago she had been much farther away, but he quickly dismissed it as a trick of imagination or his own inattention. Suspicion briefly clouded his thoughts, but the sight of his happy companion quickly made him forget the strangeness. He decided to simply enjoy the day, not searching for logic in small details. With the grace of a true gentleman, he touched her hand. The simple gesture was full of tenderness and respect, emphasizing the special closeness of their bond. The whole world around seemed to bloom. The traditional greeting in his performance turned into an unspoken confession, sending a pleasant shiver through the girl's body. His words were full of gallantry. He let her know that waiting for such a beautiful lady was not a burden, but the greatest pleasure, one he was ready to repeat again and again. Kira froze, stunned by his directness. Never before had simple words held such power over her, making her forget titles and rules. On this sunlit square, they seemed the only living people amid the bustle. The date they had both longed for had finally begun. But they were not alone. From the thick foliage, watchful, suspicion-filled eyes followed their every move. Anger boiled inside the pursuers. Seeing their lady in the company of a dubious young man filled them with the darkest and most resolute thoughts. Radical proposals for eliminating the threat began to sound louder. The protective reaction of loyal subjects threatened to turn into a real catastrophe for the unsuspecting lovers. The conspirators understood they had to act quickly and precisely. Simple observation was not enough. They needed irrefutable proof of the gentleman's betrayal that she would see with her own eyes. Yet the thirst for immediate retribution nearly took over. Only calls for reason kept the hottest defenders from intervening in events right then and there. The target had been located. The pair headed toward the restaurant, completely unaware that an invisible but extremely determined shadow followed their every step. There was no time to waste. The knights, shaking off their stupor, rushed in pursuit, realizing the distance between the lovers was becoming dangerously short. Every word from Joseph breathed responsibility. Protecting Lady Kira's honor had become his personal challenge, a matter with no room for compromise. Meanwhile, in the very center of festive bustle, the two were too absorbed in each other. Mutual attraction grew, erasing the boundaries of caution and premonition of the coming storm.